Hello, I am Peter Blackwood. I prepared this video for the Uniting Church Icon School and for anyone else who might be interested in hearing about a book on iconography written by Dr. Ursula Betka. It's called Techniques of Painting and Gilding in Late Medieval and Early Renaissance Italy, with a subtitle Egg Tempera and Gold Leaf on Wood Panel, and it's published by Hardy Grant Books. By way of promotions, one of the online booksellers writes, Techniques of Painting and Gilding in Late Medieval and Early Renaissance Art utilises author Ursula Betka's extensive artistic and practical experience alongside more than 20 years in leading a sacred arts workshop, accompanied throughout with detailed photographic records of materials and processes, along with beautifully reproduced late medieval and early Renaissance artwork. Techniques of Painting and Gilding in Late Medieval and Early Renaissance Art is a welcome addition for any budding artist or connoisseur. Ursula, in her introduction, writes, while a number of recent publications on art techniques have focused on icon painting in the Orthodox tradition, the practice of painting and gilding the altarpiece has been somewhat neglected. Therefore, this book concentrates instead on a genre of sacred painting on wood panels that flourished in Catholic Europe, particularly in Italy, from the late medieval era. Both historical and contemporary methodologies of egg tempera painting and decorative gilding are explored, along with the theological and historical meanings of sacred art in the Italian tradition. Nino Ciannini's seminal text Il Libro dell'Arte, written in late 14th century Padua or early 15th century Florence, provides a starting point for an exploration of workshop techniques and materials seen through the lens of my own artistic practice, teaching, and academic research. Well, the book begins with a brief study of the history and theology of Italian panel painting and examines the role of the altar table in the emergence of the icon and altarpiece, particularly with regards to the changes which have occurred in liturgical and devotional rites. The predominance of Madonna and child imagery is related in the notion of Mary as mother and nurture through the Eucharist, which is offered on the altar table at Mass. Integral to this book is the expression of a spiritual process and vision, which lies at the heart of my work as an artist and iconographer. I hope to attract a readership of visual artists working within both the traditional and contemporary idiom, along with art historians, researchers of the material culture of painting and gilding practice, art conservators, and museum curators. I also anticipate that the book might appeal to all who admire the enduring beauty of the Italian altarpieces that have adorned the countless altars and domestic shrines for generations and are now widely accessible in museums and galleries throughout the world. So, that's by way of an introduction to the book as written by Ursula Betka. Before we look at the contents of the book, here are a few personal observations about Ursula and her icon expertise. Ursula has been a friend of the Uniting Church Icon Schools. Rob Gallagher engaged her to spend a Saturday afternoon teaching us about gilding on icons, and we experienced a skilled teacher who was meticulous in her lesson plan preparation, generous in her provision of resources, and passionate about her specific area of iconographic expertise. We're still using the lessons she taught us more than 10 years ago. A few more words about Ursula's particular style of icon painting. Across the world of iconography, there are different artistic styles that easily identify their region or their era. Differentiating Greek from Russian icons requires an experienced eye, but Coptic and Ethiopian icons are much easier to spot. The icons on the altarpieces of the late medieval and early Renaissance Italy that Ursula studies, paints and teaches are quite readily identifiable, particularly by the style of the faces and the decorative clothing. One more word about this book before delving into its contents. This is a lavish production. Even the cover presents its stunning quality. The image of the Madonna and Child have different finishes. The background and flesh sections are a matte finish, and the garments, the halos and the texts are gloss. From our experience of Ursula's teaching style, it's no surprise that this book is an educationalist's masterpiece. The text layout with short descriptive statements with attention to detail and step-by-step instructions makes learning easy. My advice would be that if you use this book as an instruction guide while you work, please get a good see-through cover for the book. You will not want to spoil this book with splashes of gesso or paint. Those with an interest in medieval and Renaissance Italian art will benefit most from Ursula's scholarship, but from Chapter 2 onwards, anyone seeking instruction in egg tempera iconography of any style will have much to learn. She draws frequently from the instruction manual of Aidan Hart, whose monumental book on every aspect of painting icons is every iconographer's go-to reference. Even more frequent is Ursula's reference to Cennini's Il Libro dell'Arte, the Book of Art. This, of course, is because this is appropriate, as Cennini writes specifically for the art style of Ursula's special expertise. Well, after I got over admiring the presentation of the book, my interest went to Chapter 2 to learn about the panels and their preparation before painting begins. Different timbers and modern engineered woods are assessed, some recommended, others rejected as not suitable. There follows detailed instructions on gluing the cloth covering the gesso. The chapter concludes with troubleshooting. This is where some iconographers I know should study first. It could save a lot of heartache. Let me tell you what Ursula says. She writes, defects in the gesso and probable causes. First point, tiny air bubbles, glue size, and or gesso was too hot when applied to the block. Next point, tiny pattern of cracks, usually not visible until a few months after the gesso is applied. Glue size was too strong a mixture or too much size in relation to the whiting powder. Next point, gesso flaking off. Glue size was too weak a mixture or insufficient ratio of glue to whiting powder. And to the last point, if the sanding has made the gesso very shiny, the gesso solution was too hard, thus had too much glue content in relation to the whiting powder. And then on to Chapter 3, which provides advice on painting tools and materials. And what I notice is that good quality tools are worth having. There flows a rundown on pigments, their sources and properties. And Chapter 4 develops information on pigments with more information on how they behave and how best to mix them to extend the artist's palette. The ensuing chapters get down to the practicalities of getting an image onto the panel and painting and gilding and attending to specific features of the image like faces and noses and eyes and clothing and architecture and landscapes and adornments and finally varnishing and framing. Chapter 6 is given to gilding, providing step-by-step instructions on 4 ways of applying gold. It includes water gilding, the most traditional and exacting and spectacular method of gilding, but most space Ursula gives to describing the modern Kolmer Instacol gilding system that has become Ursula's particular expertise. Chapter 9, the last chapter, deals with what I consider the most controversial subject in iconography. How should I varnish my icons? Ursula describes the most popular traditional and modern methods, but also lists the pros and cons of each, which, for me at any rate, does not alleviate the anxiety this subject promotes. Despite the particular style of art that Ursula specialises in, techniques of painting and gilding in late medieval and early Renaissance Italy is a helpful resource for iconographers using egg tempera across all the styles and traditions. You may not agree with everything she teaches. I don't. But it will not be difficult to find some gap in our skill that is not helped or challenged by Ursula's meticulous teaching method. Where can you get this remarkable book and how much does it cost? Well, for fear of missing some worthy outlet, I will simply suggest a Google search, and be assured that for the quality of its production, this book is not overpriced. Well, thank you for watching this review. I hope it has been of some help.